So as discussed that we had to start the next security thing that is related to the identity access and management. So in identity access and management, we have to talk about how exactly we are authorizing the people. Okay, so security in the cloud is assured by triple A model. Okay, so one is called as authentication, then there is authorization, and then there is accountability. So these are the three A's with which we have to proceed into the cloud security. Authentication deals with which part? Can you tell me?
Authentication.
Yeah, come
Yeah,
again.
could you please repeat the repeat?
Okay. Authentication is
Authentication is enabling the users,
okay.
like authenticating
Yes,
the user with password before let them signing into the application.
right. So authentication is actually the asking this question that who has the access or who has the permission to log in. So if the person is putting right password, right username and right credential, so that person can get into the system. It is like the very first checkpoint at the security office or at the gate. So for any um, local premise, if there is a gate, so there is first check that who are you. So if that person is saying I am this person, so that is the person is actually identifying. That is still not authentication. And then the system or from the other side, there will be a check whether the person who is saying that I am this user, is it the same exact user or not. So here we can authenticate the users by their account by using certain authentication factors. So we have multi-factor authentication in the cloud, even in the email. Nowadays, every bank transaction is also coming with multi-factor authentication. Minimum two means first you put your PIN number and then it will ask you for one time password or maybe some other kind of authentication, maybe putting your transaction pin, maybe putting your fingerprint id or something like that, or maybe the device which you are using, so that endpoint security will be there. So that is your endpoint. So all these processes are involved into authentication. Once user is authenticated, user is allowed to enter into the account. Now within the account, what are the roles of the user and what are the capabilities of the user is coming under authorization, means what the user is capable of. So that will be called as authorization. So is the user authorized for performing this task or not? So obviously there has to be certain rule while setting up the account that a person having this account can do this much activity or cannot do this kind of activity. And then last one is accountability. which is dealing with accounting each and every action what user has performed, whether user is authenticated, whether user is authorized, that is fine, but what a kind of activity was done by the user and when was it done and where was it done. So that creates a log, so that comes under logging and monitoring. So these AAA is helping to boost the security, where at very first instant you authorize, at second authenticate, then you authorize, and then you track, or then you trail. So these are the key factors of the identity and access management. This is for AWS that we are going for. Same case will be there for the Azure. Same case will be there for Google Cloud Platform as well, GCP. Okay. So we already know that for one root account, we can create up to 1000 IAM account. So now we are going to understand how to configure IAM account. I will give you a lab to perform the IAM account. Also, I will tell you that how to create different roles for each of the IAM user. Okay, so let's go ahead. So very first part that we need to understand that accessing is the very first thing. So the person is nothing but an entity in the AWS account. Okay, and that resource can be used like EC2 instance, Amazon S3 bucket. Okay, so whenever we use any storage or we create any object, then it is going into S3 bucket. S3 bucket is one of the storage that is called a simple storage service. 3 times S is there, that is why we are calling it S3 bucket. Then we can also control, one can also control that how to terminate EC2 instance and all. Now the question should be asked for IAM user that who can access resource, which access means what level of access is there, and how resources can be accessed. And it is almost no cost AWS feature. Means once you have the root account, you have the option to enable for IAM account, right? So with the email ID, I will be able to create certain IAM accounts and can send you all. So IAM security deals with these four pillars or four essential components. Okay, so or four pillars. So very first thing is IAM user. Okay, so who is the user? The definition of the user. Second is the IAM group. Sometimes people work for a particular task and that can have a collection of IAM user. They are called as group. That is possible in IAM to create the different group, and one person can be a part of multiple group as well. And then there is IAM policy. IAM policy deals with the authorities or authorization to perform certain tasks, and policies can be of various types. Okay, so policies like we have role based access, or we have resource based access, RABC. So different policies are applicable and one has to revise this policy time and again. And then there is IAM role. IAM role is nothing but the mechanism to grant set of permissions. So we have lot of roles created already. You just select the role, automatically all the policies related to that role can be applied. Let's say admin group. So all the administrative role or permissions can be allocated for that particular user who has come in that group. Okay. So how to authenticate or how user can gain the access. So we have already talked about different methods. Same is applicable to the IAM user as well, right? Okay. I think one device is there. Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I had to use another device. Yeah. So we are talking about IAM user, and we'll select which type of access is there. So first we need to understand how can IAM user logging in the system. So we have already talked about the very famous method, that is first method called as AWS management console. So this AWS management console is actually related to the aws.amazon.com. So this is the console of management. If you use this, you will get the ID and password, and then there will be some sort of authentication and all. Secondly, if you are using any server where you are using through any server point or maybe your endpoint, then you can use this CLI. So whenever you try to use CLI, you have to use or must provide the key pair for the login. And next, again, key pair is valid to this also and SDK also. So this is the third method where a particular software or your software who wants to have the access of EC2 instance or maybe some server, then that software should also be able to log in to the cloud by using this. So that is again playing the role of entity. So we can have different access techniques. We can authenticate them using access key ID or secret access key. Okay, this is for the CLI and SDK access, which these are two. And if you are having console access or management access, then this is mostly for the user or mostly for the people or person for that. And first two is for user plus software or API. So whenever it comes for user must have that 12-digit account ID or some alias name, maybe non-repeated unique name. Then there has to be username, there has to be IAM password as well. So all these things will be provided via root account at first. So without root account, no one can distribute this IAM account. One IAM person cannot give or cannot start another IAM person until that person is having that root capability or root access for that account. And if enabled, then we have to use the MFA, that is multi-factor authentication. Nowadays this is must, that everyone should use this multi-factor authentication, because simply on password we cannot rely. Even we, that password may be a predictable one, or the password can be easily what we say is hackable, or uh, easily can be taken from the computer by someone else. So that is why minimum two different authentication is better option. There can be three as well. Okay, so whenever you want to go for multi-factor authentication, you have to, it will add to the security. So if there is username and password, that is fine, but after user and password there will be multi-factor authentication token, and when authentication code is put right, then only you will get the management console. So this is called as management console or the dashboard. So you will get it only when you have the proper authentication. So how exactly like authorization authentication part is coming up to MFA. Now we'll see how exactly authorization part is taking place. So whenever user is already connected to AWS account, then what action can user perform is actually related to the AWS authorization. So in AWS, if anyone is there, maybe user is there, maybe a group of user is there, or particular IAM role has been selected, then we have to apply IAM policy to that. IAM policy will give me whether you have full access to everything or read only access. So whenever it comes to any server or any processor or servers, at that instance it is required that we should get the full access, because we should be able to configure SG, that is security group, or we should be able to create the proper VPC for it. But for other services, like let's say for S3 bucket, okay, we can create on read only policy. Okay, just to see data. So that is called as read only policy. So S3 bucket, where we can store anything, right from audio, video, text, any kind of file, so we can use that. And we, let's say we are not authorized to modify it, so that is why there is only read only policy enabled for that particular user. So this is the part of authorization, that it defines the capability of the IAM users. So we have to create the policy, we have to create the rules, and we have to give them authorization. Proper authorization is done by using a method called as best practice method. And always a best practice method says, please give least privileges for the user, means follow the principle of least privileges. And after that, if that user requires something extra, then only start with this further part. Okay, so IAM permission says always prefer the least privileges first. Okay, so there is like IAM configuration which is called as global. Whatever uh, configuration of IAM you will do, that will be a global. Global means available for all region, all AWS region. So if you are using, if you have defined any user, you have given certain capability to the user, or certain policies you have applied, all that configuration is valid for the user, whether that user is in uh, the US region, Europe region, or Asian region, anywhere. So this is a called as global configuration. I will show you in the login process also. Whenever we use this login process, it is region free based, means there is no region selected, it is written global over there. So that is how IAM authorization and authentication takes place. Okay, we further discuss now IAM policies. So IAM policies are nothing but they are the documentations and list of checks, list of checklist, whether the particular thing is allowed or not. And there can be two different type of identity policy distribution. One is called as identity based and second is called as resource based. Identity based means what? You select the user and you give that user a particular permission, that is called as identity based. Let's say I am saying that this particular user is admin, so now that user is defined by the help of this identity called as admin. If another user is there, let's say that user is from HR group or one is there from developer group, so identity of that user is either HR or the developer, so that is called as identity policy. Okay, so identity policies are uh, like using the entities, that who is the IAM user, whether it is from the group or it is from the role is like admin, HR, developer and so many, testing, assessment, many things. And what actions are there, that policy is allowed to perform this task, policy may be allowed not allowed to perform this task. So that is called as policy. Even we can specify multiple policies to this identity based user. So policies are identity based or resource based. So first if I talk about identity based, so these are the things related to identity based, where policy can be attached to multiple entities or single entity can also be attached to multiple policy. Means both are possible. One user can have many access or many access is given to the particular user. So that is called identity based. Second thing, second type of identity or access is there is called as resource based policy. Resource based policy means you select the resource. Which resource? Maybe a processing, maybe a storage, maybe database or any other configuration setting. And let's say this particular resource can be accessed by this user only. So this is called as resource based. You attach the resource to that IAM account. So then it is not understood whether that user is having the role, which kind of role, whether the user is admin or any other, but user is having access to that S3 bucket, that is called as resource based. So whenever you map any resource to any user, then it is resource based. Whenever you set some policies, you form them into the groups, then we can call this as identity based. So how policies are written into AWS, or how policies are, what format is there. So this particular policy, or whenever we write any policy, we write in this particular format, and this particular format is nothing but called as JSON format. So whenever we form any file, so we can create a .json file. .json file is very simple English, plain English, which is having some set of commands. Okay, so just start your uh, in braces and just keep on writing which version, and then you can write the statement that what is allowed and which action is allowed and which resources are allowed to get access. And if you are allowing any resource, you please provide which bucket name or which database one can access. That is called as writing the permissions or policies in a manner. Okay, so that is one one allow statement is given. So the very first one is the allow statement, and second statement is deny statement. If you can see in the green and red part, we have allow and deny. Okay, so this allow and deny will decide whether user is having any given user is having permission to use this or not. So let's say I don't want user to touch any other bucket, so I can provide that this particular uh, S3 or this particular resource should not be available to the user, although that user has the access to that particular region in that area or in that resource, but it is not allowed to perform that kind of task. So explicit deny statement can be written for them, so that is called as JSON file. But when we are using AWS account, then this JSON file is created automatically. So you don't have to every time write the JSON file. Rather, you can just use tick marks, just use allow and deny, directly select the tab, and in the backend this JSON file will be created. And once that is created, that is tagged along the IAM user, whoever is there. So this is there is a way of writing all this, and but you can define in the JSON file as well. So let's say I have done the setting for 100 users, and now I want to extend the same setting for next 100 user. So what I can do, I can download this JSON file and I can upload it same for the rest of the users. So that is called as JSON file. When we talk about resource based policies, we have to talk about resources which are accessible to it or not. Okay, that does not belong to any user, any group, or any role. Okay, so whenever you attach the policy, that will not see whether user is having certain higher role or not. Let's say there is some uh, IAM account which is available, and the role is given for admin, and where admin, let's say, have the right to perform certain task into the database of the employee. But still, if I am using only resource based policy and I have attached only S3 bucket, at that time user is not being like any other user who is having that access, whether that user is not from the admin, then also that user is having that resource attached to it, so that user can also see the database. So these are the common characteristics of the resource based policies. So resources you have to attach to particular user. Okay, and resource based policy is also the same thing. It is also a JSON kind of file. Again, it will have the allow and deny kind of checklist. Okay, so how the permissions are checked? Permissions are checked by this method. That is, the permission is given explicitly for the deny. Means very fast it will be checked whether permission has any denial rule or not. Okay, so in the very start we check this denial rule. If it is there, then directly deny. If this passes this denial rule, then you can go to the allow category. Allow category will give us the idea that which permissions are allowed to use by this particular user, and you can allow. If in the allow part there are some explicit permission and user is accessing something else which user is not allowed, and then you can deny the rest of it. So rest of denial. Okay, so I'll give you one example. If the user is having the permission, let's say here we have the user X who has allow permission for EC2 and deny permission for, let's say, S3 bucket, Okay, but user is actually accessing what, let's say another service than this, that is called as AWS Lambda. So AWS Lambda, if it is now getting accessed by the user, so if you have not written this policy, then you will stuck, then that user can have some bypass. So that is why this rule is also used, that other than explicit deny, there has to be some implicit deny as well. So let's say user is not allowed to use S3, that is fine. Now user is allowed to use EC2, that is allowed. But user is actually accessing Lambda services which is not written anywhere. So that does not mean that user should get the access to that particular service. That should be written in the allow statement, then only it will be allowed. Are you getting this? Is there any doubt for this? Denial and allow rule. And even some things are also there which are coming not in the allow rule, not in the denial rule. So even that should also be avoided by using explicit deny method. Is it fine? Yeah. I'm not getting the voice, can you please confirm? Hello, is it clear that how do we use the permission determination? Means we have to check the explicit permission as well as the implicit permission. Fine.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Okay, okay. So this is how, like if some permission is given, that is fine. If not given, that is fine. But if user is accessing other than whatever is defined or not defined for the user, then again rest of the denial should also be there in the place. Now same thing goes for the IAM user as well. Okay, sometimes single user may be a part of multiple accounts or multiple roles. So that is called as a groups. So let's say we have the three groups. One is admin group, one is developer group, and one is tester group. So three groups are there, and you can see the names are already written for each of the user, just for example. But I can see the person Lee is there in both of the groups. So whenever user is belonging to the multiple group, okay, then you have to, that user will inherit the policies or permissions from both of the group. So there is no nesting. Nesting means what? If any higher group is selected, by default the lower group permissions are allocated to that person. That is not allowed. So that is how nesting is not allowed. Separate groups will be there and their policies will be separate. It does not mean that if I'm admin, I have the all the permissions for from the tester side as well and the developer side as well. No, this is not allowed. Are you getting? So this kind of grouping can be done, but you should not form a group under that another group. So that is because of the policy issues. So that is why we have to create the separate policies for each of the groups. And final thing is about IAM roles. So even users can be categorized based on this IAM roles. This is the fourth one. So IAM roles are what? That is giving specific permissions. Okay, so some particular permission is given to that user. and that role is depending upon whether that role is having some security credential which is permanent or temporary. Okay, so let's say for some uh, changes into the database, I have given the permission to any particular person and any let's say a developer to change this particular database or update this particular database, but I have given the IAM role for limited time. Okay, so here you can uh, uh, limit the user by using this IAM role policies. So IAM role can be used by any IAM user in the same account, and whenever you are using this, okay, like you are actually accessing certain resources, let's say Amazon EC2 instance, then it should be within the same account role. That user should not be able to go and access in other account. Next thing is related to the different AWS account. So again, IAM user in different AWS account should again should be given to the should get the particular access, or maybe temporary access, or it is role based access. So role based access is also another thing. At some of the places it is very advantageous, and some places the resource based access is there. This is how users are divided and their access is limited. So now I'm creating telling one scenario here where an application is running in a Hello, hi. Laptop just got rebooted. I think some issue was there. Just give me a minute. It is start.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That I was wondering it was on my side. Okay,
Yeah, suddenly it was a blue screen came.
okay. Maybe sometimes it happens because of the heat. So you
Yeah,
need to
heat
put
is
some.
one reason, and maybe I had connected actually multiple this connectors to it. Yeah, I was using almost all the USBs, and maybe camera is sometime not.
Okay.
Yeah, it was me. So I just wanted to know, like, how are you practicing any cloud or any services still means in your organization or somewhere? Do you have your account in AWS? Can we just know?
Well, I used to.
Okay,
Yeah, after that, like I haven't really started using the AWS account.
okay,
Yeah, but I'm familiar with this because I work in the ERP. Like I'm familiar with
okay.
this role-based security.
Mm-hmm.
So policies we call it as permissions. Role is like it's each and every user role.
Okay,
Created role. The group is something like that's. So when you said like some, you'll have like one user is in multiple groups. So
yes.
that's a lower. The group with the lower permission, higher permission. So which one takes precedence? The one with the higher group or lower group? How the priority is?
No, yeah, that is what I was saying, that nesting is not allowed. Okay, so if higher group is there, and still only the permissions which are attached to that group will is only applicable. Okay, so there means here nesting is not done. So each group will be having separate policies, Maybe that policy is same in both of the group. Let's say accessing EC2 instance, that is one. So it is, that is okay. It means it is applicable to the same. But the thing is, um, let's say if a single permission is not there for that particular user, so that will not be available even if that group is higher than the other group. So nesting is not allowed. That is the thing.
So, so in that case, if they are in multiple groups, then it looks for the policy for the group.
Policies of that individual group at the time of what, if it is used or whatever is used at that moment, means for that respective group. So if I'm into admin as well as I am into developer, so if I'm accessing any resource which is related to let's say any particular EC2 instance or engine. So we have to define, we have to like select the proper role, whether it is coming from admin side or it is coming from developer side. And for the further practice, first I have actually put in the request to create the separate AWS account, AWS account for the practice purpose. So yesterday I had put the request. So within 24 hours, it will get active. So maybe in 1 hour or two, it will get active. Then I can join you also Gmail ID, and you can have your own AWS account where you can practice all these policies and other things, because some project and some labs activities are coming up. So for that, we need to use the AWS account. Okay, so if you have your own AWS account, that is fine. Otherwise, this academy part or academy based account, I am giving you access for certain time, and this only gives the uh, access for next 3 months. So it is valid for next 3 months.
Okay.
Okay, if
So
it
you
is
get the IAM account, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
pardon.
the root. No, no. Yeah, I created the root user account, but we'll have the IAM account, so we'll start practicing like user.
Yes.
So, but we'll have access to all the security policies and everything to.
Yeah, yeah. But whatever is coming under free tier, up to that we can use. Means whatever we are using by uh, uh, like our free account from credit card, whatever permissions are there, same permissions we can use.
So, if I create some users and everything, and I'll be able to
Yeah,
test that
possible.
user,
Yeah, yeah. Even
login that,
means you have that permission to create another IM account as well. Maybe
and log
five,
in
three
that user
different accounts.
and test that access.
Yes, yes, we can. But the thing is, that is valid for the when session starts. That valids for the 4 hours, and after that, if you want to more, then you can just use the start button again, and that will be extended. That
Okay.
time will get extended. So here it is lab kind of thing. That is why this limited access is given by AWS, because otherwise everybody will come here only.
So
So
this
that is
is cloud based, and do you also like there are a lot of other tools which we in the cyber security they use a lot of IAM tools like Oracle Identity Manager, CyberArk, like that. Lot of other that also we learn or only the cloud based we learn.
no, no. We have this IAM security in two part. First part is related to how role-based things are done, and then how to attach the policy, how to create the groups, how to put the user in particular part and all. Once that is done, then we can proceed with the network security then. And once that completes, then we can start. Then the second part of IAM security will start after that network security, because We need to know that also. So this is how we are proceeding as per the requirement at present. So that is in
Yeah.
the two part. Yeah. So further part of IM is will also be there.
Some of the tools we learn.
Yes, yes. It will be there. So whatever is coming under AWS cloud, all those tools we are going to see for the IM as well.
Yeah, this one already like I'm already familiar with this LDAP and this role-based
Okay.
security because
Yeah, yeah.
I've
The
already.
name, yeah. The name is familiar and it is the same name, similar thing what we are actually using already. Correct.
Yeah, yeah. One person, yeah, somebody like in my other when they were some of the AWS team when they had issues
Yeah.
understanding this,
Mm,
we used to work on the ERP security, right? We have
right.
explained this detailedly to them.
Yeah, actually. So the thing is, I actually have to proceed with the IM security directly, but some of the people are here in the group that they may not be knowing what is IAM and all this. So that is why I had to first tell what is IAM and how to set up the IAM account, and then we can go ahead with the security part. So
Okay,
yeah. So in which time zone you are in?
Eastern time zone.
Oh,
Eastern time zone.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I wonder like a lot of people, no one has joined.
Yeah, known as.
I see like no one has joined today. Like if nobody
Yeah,
joined
that.
the meeting, then you may not be able to even record the meeting, right?
Yeah, yes, and the thing is, I waited for long, so I was like, but then I thought what is to be done, and but
No,
we have
I'm
to
traveling.
like,
Yeah, I'm traveling this week, but still 10:30
okay,
was late, so still I managed to join.
great, great, very uh, appreciated that. Thanks. Yeah, because we have to put in some extra effort
You
because we
haven't,
are
you're
trying
not
to learn
recording.
that into extra hour. No,
So you're
after
not
our
recording, right? You stopped recording, right?
recording was is going on, still going on. Yeah, it is there. That is why I joined with the two accounts so that we can.
Okay.
I think full screen is okay. So this was the place where we were talking about the AWS account and just
Yes, yes. You're on mute on both.
no, yeah. Actually, have just used the same PPT device. Okay, yeah, the mic from there. Okay, so I was saying that we we can belong to multiple group. That is fine, but uh, groups cannot be nested. Means their permissions cannot be nested. If I am belonging to higher group, we have to make sure that policies are not overlapped. Whatever policy is defined for this and this, that should be separate.
So in this case, Lee is in developer group and tester group. So
Yes,
developer they have more access. So
yeah, that's the right word. More
which will
access.
it will take precedence of the developer one, which has more access or less access of
Yeah,
tester.
so if I talk about EC2 instance, even for EC2 instance, that Lee has to define or come through either from developer side or tester side. Means you have to select any one the role of that. Means with that role only, Lee should be accessing it.
So what happens like a developer, they have some development tools access and the tester, they'll have some functionality access.
Yeah, that is what.
So,
Yeah, that is a,
so what
right.
happens like in that case, like they won't get both access?
Both access will be there, but IM rule or as per the IM record has to be there whether this activity was performed by
As a developer,
with the developer role or with the tester role.
the role is okay.
Yeah. So role should be mentioned before using these services. Then
Okay.
only we can have the non-overlapping or non-precedence type of access.
So which one take precedence? The one in the policy or the role? So we have multiple levels. We can one is in the group. Group is again like it's based on the
Right.
policy and then role also we have, right? So which one takes precedence? Everything again looks back into the policy, right? Whatever is specified in the policy.
Yeah, that will be there in the allowed policies.
Okay.
So uh, press means there means if we see on the larger scale, we can say that precedence kind of effect will be there, but that is not allowed actually. So
So the JSON code will be created for each and every policy.
yes, 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 and
We'll
that
be
will
able
be
to go and see
separate.
the policy. Okay. For each policy, we can go and open and see the code.
Yes, yes, separately. That is there.
Okay.
Okay. So a scenario is over here, and like I've told, like if there is multiple group or multiple uh, user is having multiple access, so then we have to decide that user is like using which kind of role, and based on that policy only it has to go. Okay, so whenever user is having, let's say, 5 set of rules or policies in one group. Hello.
Yeah, it got disconnected. Other way.
Am I audible, right?
I think the other you had two connections, right? The other one got disconnected. This is not that clear. Yeah.
Okay, because my one device is down. So scenario is there that one EC2 instance is running and it needs the access of S3 bucket. So I have to now create one extra access to the S3 bucket. So first we have to check whether access bucket is there, and then it is to be attached to the IAM role, and then this role will be assumed by the EC2 instance, and then only their permission to access the S3 bucket will be there. So a single photograph is to be prepared, but photograph processing, let's say something is to be done. but for that we need the photograph from the database. But there was no access to that S3 earlier. Now that is given access to the IAM role, and now through that role, this EC2 instance can access this S3 bucket. Okay. So solution is to first grant the access to the IAM policy and then attach that policy to that particular role. Then only EC2 can assume that role for that particular person. So here EC2 is the resource, and that person is the that IAM user is the is IAM role is controlling that resource policy or resource whatever, uh, allowing or policy based access is given. So JSON policies and all, we talked about that IAM policies are constructed based on JSON, uh, JSON mode, and JSON based policies are there. And since JSON is the very specified format, and multiple places if we can import and export the JSON files, that is why it is very easy to use the JSON based policies. And whatever IAM users are there, that is the way to provide the access to the particular application or services, and which is there in the AWS. Same, these are the key points of the till discussions that we had till now. Then IAM role can have the policy attached to it, which can delegate to the temporary access as well. Now for the demo purpose, we can use our account, and in that we can set up that how exactly we are using. Okay. So before starting with the AWS account, we should know that now the root user access and IAM access, what is the exact difference between them. Okay. The very first best practice or very first goal thumb rule is there, that we should not use the root account except when necessary. If I want to create extra IAM account, then only I should be using the root account. Otherwise, I should not use the root account, because by default that comes with lot of access, and it should not be given to others. Only the particular person who owns the root account should create the new IAM account and give it to others. So we can see here, root account is having privileges cannot be controlled and full access to the resources, while IAM accounts can have the integration with other services, can enforce the identity federation, then can also secure the applications, and there are some granular permission, means particular permissions, region wise permissions, and other permissions can be defined. Whenever we want to secure any IAM root, IAM any account root user, so we have to first uh, stop using the root account and just create the IAM account before using the root. So always these are the golden rules that we should use for any of the cloud, and we should enable the policies for the every user. We should make sure that user has um IAM user has the proper or least privilege type of policies. Then we have to enable the multi-factor authentication, that is pretty much required, because that gives us the one extra layer of added security. So if there is a multi-factor account in the root user for all IAM users, then there are different methods to authenticate them. Okay, so one method is there, that one can use the Google Authenticator or Auth Auth is one of the app which is there on the Windows phone and other part. So this is available. So we can use our own device like cell phones or laptop, etc. Because we use all these on regular basis, so we have the access to these devices. So that is better way to go for. Second thing is related to security key devices. UB key is like one example is there. So these are the pen drive kind of devices which are available, and then we can plug this device into the um, the terminal which we are using, and accordingly it will provide the key pair to that. It will give extra access, means random access. Security key is generated, and that device itself is the authenticating device, but one should not lose this device, otherwise the person having this device will get the access. So even for the card, there are some companies which are offering key card. So one has to enter the key card in the laptop. Some laptops are there, some endpoint devices are there, which are having slots for key card, and one can use this key card. Now third thing or third step which one has to do is for the any AWS account is should start using this service called as CloudTrail, because CloudTrail is the service which will be giving. Hello. Yes. So CloudTrail service will be which will be okay. Am I audible now? Hello. Hello. Yeah. So I was saying that we should create the CloudTrail. This is one of the AWS service which is available, and by using this CloudTrail, we are able to track and monitor or get the logging of all the details, and we can get the history up to 90 days. And because of this, we'll be able to set up CloudWatch functionality. CloudWatch is another tool which is available into AWS, with which we can create certain alerts, and we can again look for any uh, um, trail or any events which has been violated, or any other issues even in the past up to 90 days. But before that, one has to start using this cloud tail service. So cloud trailing is required. Once it is enabled by default, then you can get the access up to 90 days. So for any basic cloud history, it is enabled by default. If we want to create some extra settings for that, we can configure it. So when you, so by default one S3 bucket is assigned to it. We can go to that bucket and we can even take the backup of that S3 bucket. If we know that we want to create it for beyond 90 days, we should go in S3 bucket and create a backup copy in the storage. So this is the last part or third part which is required for any new account. So very first thing is that do not use root account, always create IAM accounts. Second best practice is that we have to use the least privilege, least policy privilege. So let's say if I have a two groups, two different groups are having two different set of policy rules. So if I talk about precedence level that you were asking, so we should always follow the least privilege precedence first. So but nesting cannot be done and one rule should not be uh, overlapping onto another. And third thing is related to the securing the account, means by using this free tool called as aid cloud trail. So by default it is enabled and it will give us the access when we did the login, when we changed a particular service, when we have created another route, any IAM account, or what are the other changes in the policy was done. So all the activities which are going on is getting recorded over here. And um, like a further part, we can just get the billing reports as well. So billing report we can enable and by default it is available for each and every user. And billing report, you can we can set the different settings, like how frequent you want this billing report to be uh, given. And even there are certain alerts that can be set, and we can get email or SMS or we can get notified that how much amount or how much billing is cost for this particular. So again, for this we need to we need to follow these best practices for any AWS account. For this we have to make sure that it is secured. So for securing we should enable multi-factor authentication, that is the first part. Then we should delete the root account access keys, we should not, so that others cannot use it. Always create the IAM accounts with the least privilege functionality, and we can put the IAM users into the groups as well. We can configure the we can decide the strong password policy, that it gives us the option that IAM user should use the strong password policy, and at particular time this password need to be changed, or maybe expiration time of the policy should be should be used for particular IAM roles. Then there is deleting the roles instead of sharing the credentials. So we should not use unnecessary roles which are created for time being, but they are still available. And always use the monitoring tool like AWS Cloud Trail. So this will help us to get the 90 days backup, or otherwise we can take the extra backup to save the activity of which are done beyond or past 90 days. So this is the first lab task that we have to do. The thing is, we have to explore the users and the groups. We have to make certain group and we can add users to the particular group, and then we can decide the sign in at the test groups. Okay, so this all this will be available under this particular tab which is called as identity access and management. So we can use this particular option of the AWS to do this particular task. So that is our first lab task that we have to do. If we have our own account, we can practice in there. Otherwise I'm adding into one academy account, there also we can practice it. So finally final product should look like this. So this is the actual uh, lab structure that should be there. So let's say we have created three different user 1 to user 3, and we have created three different groups also. One is EC2 admin, second is EC2 support, and third is let's say S3 support. So if these three different groups are there, now it is up to us to give the access to particular user for this particular group. So here in the lab, uh, they are saying that user 3 should be attached to EC2, user 2 should be attached to support group, and user 1 is to be attached to this particular S3 support. Okay, so this is final product, or this is one of the these like a way how we create individual users. Individual users can also be given certain policies, certain things, and group wise also they can be given the policies, or we can apply these JSON rules. So JSON file will be created automatically. There are n number of already created roles available. We can select these roles from the drop down menu which are available into AWS. So there is one option also called as AWS organization. Okay, so whenever multiple groups or multiple users are there, we can use this functionality of AWS organizations. In short form, we call this as organizational units, OUs. Okay, so we can use this OUs also to for the multiple AWS accounts, so that we can centrally manage them. So even for that purpose, it is these OUs are available. So but for we don't have this level of uh, task here, because already we are having one root account. This is for the uh, root accounts which are there, and we can manage on the top of the root account. So there are different service control policies which are available, SCPs, and we'll see that into the account as well. And if you want to store our passwords, if you want to manage our passwords with the master password we want to remember, and we want to keep the record of all the IAM user and their passwords, we can use this service called as AWS KMS, which is key management service. But it is also, see again, it is like you we have some charge for this, but it is another easy way to uh, uh, like secure our passwords and take the keep the record of it. Okay, so AWS KMS service also available to create and manage different encryption keys. There is one more option available called as Amazon Cognito. Okay, all these things we'll see in the account as well. I'm just giving the know-hows that what are these things are there. So Cognito is also there, which is for the sign in purpose, and it can give access to cell phones or any endpoint applications which are there, and it can be scaled to maximum number of users. Actually there are different things like Microsoft Active Directory, and even Amazon is having that directory. So all these are using their Active Directory to support the sign-in feature for the other accounts. Nowadays, if we go to any website, we see that option: sign in by Google, sign in by Facebook, means sign in by Facebook ID, sign in by Microsoft account. So all these are related to this. In the AWS, we have this Cognito feature from the AWS as well. Then for the attack purpose, because I have told you the very common issue which is there in the cloud is related to scaling, because it is the best feature of the cloud. So cloud can scale up, and if that option is enabled, it is most likely to get under DDoS attack. So whenever there is DDoS attack, what happens? Your services will keep on expanding. We will see check that traffic is coming extra, and your EC2 instance is not able to handle. Maybe we can enhance the EC2 capability in the power, and we can start the maximum with the higher RAM or higher CPU power. But that is actually not the traffic, and let's say that is the any kind of DDoS attack. So for that purpose, there is AWS Shield feature which are enabled already, and with no additional cost. But if you want some extra services in Shield, then we have to pay the charges for Shield Advanced option. Otherwise, this is to safeguard all kind of DDoS attack which may happen, because the very first thing, very common issue into AWS or any of the cloud is that is related to DDoS attack. Because scaling functionality is there, DDoS can take place, and people just tries to say use the sync flood, or maybe a denial of service, multiple requests unnecessarily to block the server. So this will minimize the application downtime and the latency, and try to again this Shield is using certain features nowadays, taking the help of AIs also to understand the behavioral change, pattern recognition, how exactly DDoS is coming. Because DDoS is um, nowadays also um, use means this kind of attack is also getting modified. So same way Shield is also has to be elevated to that level. And then later part is there, that how exactly data is secured. So of course, wherever it is there in the earlier sessions also, we have gone through this data security. So Indresh sir has already taken many sessions, and where we had talked about encryptions, and we talked about SSL, we talked about TLS. Because whenever data even stored somewhere, then also it should not be stored as plain text. It is better to encrypt the data even at the rest, and it is also required to encrypt the data whenever they are in the transition. That will ensure the integrity of the data, and whenever it is stored, that will ensure the confidentiality of the data. So for every data, whether it is at rest, we can use the encryption techniques, and we can store these encryption techniques supported by AWS KMS. What are these things can be encrypted? These are the different things which are available in AWS, which need to be encrypted. Okay, so we have S3, which is giving us the option to encrypt. EBS, elastic volume, elastic block storage is there, and then elastic file system is there. Then relational data management service is there. So RDS is there. So all these are the place where data is residing at that, in that part. So at that time we have to enable the encryption method. So whenever data is at rest, encryption is required, and it is the best practice to go for. Then encryption in transit also required in the normal cyber security, or everywhere we know that we should not send the data without encrypting. Otherwise, in between anyone can tap into it. So that is why we have to use the TLS or SSL certifications. So there are different like HTTPS we are using maximum for the www dot access, and for that we are using this TLS and SSL security. And the secure, they are having certification based securities. So at both end they are checked, and if the security is satisfied, then only integrity can be guaranteed. So whenever even there is a traffic within the cloud, let's say from one service to another service, still TLS is encrypted here. And even if you are having local data center, It is called as local data center, which is there with the corporate server. And from there, if the data is accessed or maybe coming and back going from the S3, which is the storage service present in the cloud, again we have to use this TLS or SSL type of encryption, so as to make sure that data is properly integrated. So uh, AWS storage gateway is should be used. There is direct connect option which is available. We can use that, and always we should use encryption even in the data going for the transition. So data at rest, data as transition, both needs to be encrypted and security should be there. Okay. Then how to secure the S3 bucket and objects, that part we will cover when we start with the storage security. Okay. So at this instance we are not going to use this, uh, go for this particular. Okay. And we are doing security part, we are doing IAM account securing, limited access, role based policies, all these things for which purpose? For the purpose of compliance and for the purpose of regulations. So compliance is required because there are different laws, federation rules and all these, and that should be complied. So there are tools for that also. We will cover this in other sessions also at that time. So for the summary point, we are here now only focusing on to IAM based securities, IAM based policies. What is IAM? How do we create the IAM? What are their roles? How do we use IAM groups? What are the best practices for the IAM? And the lab session was there. So we can use one lab session also, where we have to create 3 users and then we have to put them into 3 different groups. Okay, so that part we have to do. Okay. Now I'll just, there is a, this knowledge check question comes in every AWS slides, and these slides are directly given by AWS to the trainers. So means because means if you want to pursue any certification course from Amazon, so one can practice these kind of questions. So this is one question, this just that which of the following AWS responsibility under the AWS shared responsibility model. Okay, so which one is coming under shared responsibility model, which is under AWS, not for the customers. First thing is configuring third party application, managing the physical hardware, securing the application access data, and managing.
AWS shared maintained.
Which one?
C, option C, securing application access and data.
Okay, so this is for the AWS side, right? And the keyword used here is AWS responsibility. And another thing was AWS shared responsibility model. So there are certain responsibility from the AWS side, certain from the customer side. So here AWS related thing is there. So correct answer should be B. I'll go back. Okay, so maintaining the physical hardware is something which is not coming for the customer side because we are using cloud service. So cloud, we don't bother about hardware and other aspects. Hardware related, all the details should be, these responsibility is to be taken up by the AWS provider. Securing the application and access the data is having customer side or the organization side responsibility, because organization may only opt for infrastructure, that time application it will be of that particular organization only, even for the platform service. For the software as a service, again then AWS comes in this also, but Again, organization side, some APIs are used. So again, it is the role of the customer side. So for AWS responsibility, the server part or the physical hardware was purely towards the AWS. Okay. So there are certain additional resources also. We can go through these, and there are certain labs which are given. We can follow this procedure. A security pillar is one, and best practices. We should be using these security pillars and best practices. Okay, and finally, uh, the second part of IAM security, when we'll do, then we'll see the vulnerability and penetration testing in the cloud. Okay, so right now we talked about security resources, security things, uh, security pillars, best practices, and all. So these are coming under IAM rules, securities, and IAM policies. Okay, so once I add your email ID which you have given, so then we can start practicing in this, and then you can share your screen and just show me how exactly you have done the user allocation and added the user into the particular groups in that particular account of AWS. Okay, so we are winding up here for today.
Okay. Yeah. So you'll give that the project of creating the user, like how you want to create the user, or we can create by
Yeah,
ourselves.
I'll once I you just share in that, but means you can send me individual or in the group also that email ID. Once that is, I'll add that to the this AWS Academy course. So then you will have the access to all the videos, all the PPTs, and then you can also start the lab. So in the lab part, then I'll send you the screenshot that in which activity is to be done in the group. So accordingly, everybody should start practicing on the AWS, and then in the next session, we will see everybody's account that how exactly we are facing any challenges and how are we setting it up, and what are the warning issues coming in. Okay.
Okay.
Okay then.
Okay.
See you in
Thank
the
you.
next session. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.